welcome back once again to another episode of the Gold Corner. Again, guys, I want to apologize that last week I did not do a video. Childhood Cancer Awareness Month kept me a little bit busy, and I just kind of wanted to take some time off and just kind of, like I mentioned in the previous video, just recharge some batteries. But we're back at it again. And like I also mentioned, not because September's over doesn't mean we're not going to continue to spread childhood cancer awareness. This is something that we live with every day, that we're currently living and fighting with those fighters that are currently fighting right now. So once again, I wanted to thank everybody for the love and support, for everything that you're showing the Gold Corner. If you have an opportunity, if you want to hit the little gold ribbon, it does subscribe you to our channel. And if you hit the little bell icon, it does let you know when we upload a video, so you can hear all these great stories that have been featured on all the following stories here. So guys, I am very excited today. I do have a very special family that we're going to go ahead and be introducing him here. I went ahead. I met Staci through a support group here on Facebook for parents. For parents, there's a lot of support groups out there, but I had the opportunity to meet her through the support group, and I also have been following the story of this amazing young man, her son Kris. Wow, honestly, I mean, once you guys hear the story, it's going to impact you. This is a powerful, amazing story, and I can't personally wait to hear it in detail. So as you're hearing it, I'm hearing it also for the first time, as far as being told by his mom and being told in detail. So once again, I wanted to introduce. I have Staci from Tigard, Oregon, which is close to Portland. You were telling me somewhere
Yes.
around there? Okay, yes. So Staci,
About 20 minutes away.
oh, there you go. Stacey, I wanted to welcome you. I wanted to first and foremost say, thank you for accepting to be here in the Gold Corner. As you know, I mean, I just want to spread awareness. We want to talk about our heroes. We want to speak about our children as they are right now. So once again, Stacey, thank you so much. It's a pleasure to meet you. And the floor is yours. And talk to us about your warrior.
It's nice to meet you also. Thanks for having us. Okay, so Christian Kim is one of my 9 children, and he is the second boy of my children. He is he is a huge warrior. He's actually been going through things since he was a baby. When he was 10 months old, he had another rare cyst on his neck that he had gotten from what is it called? He had strep throat, and so when he had strep throat, he had gotten an infection in his throat, and so he had to have surgery. And he came out of that perfect. He was in the hospital a couple days, and then he just was the best baby, the best toddler, never crying, never fussing. He's been playing football since he was in kindergarten, I want to say. He played football till 3rd grade. From 3rd grade to high school, he played from 3rd to 8th he played youth football, and then from freshman to just recently he played regular high school football. And he's always been like one of the top football players. It's been to watch him play. I can't think of the positions that he plays, but he plays, he's the one that tackles the boys. So when my son was, I want to say his freshman year, he had been losing weight. And so he had been losing, a good amount of weight. And I had taken him to this doctor. He had every time they have football, they have to do like a physical. And so when he went for his physical, they had seen that he had lost, drastic amount of weight since his last physical. And so they wanted to they wanted me to bring him in to see if he, why he was losing weight. Maybe it was just like they weren't sure what was going on. And so I kept taking him in I want to say for like a whole month or 2. I was taking him every week to his, what is it called? His doctor, his pediatric doctor. And so every time we went, he was still losing weight. She was like, well, you need to start him on protein and fish and vitamins and get him all the, calories that he can get, because if he keeps coming back, then we're going to have to take him out of sports because he's losing, what is it? He's putting out more than he's bringing in, like he's putting out more excessive, whatever. And so we're like, what's going on? Like my son, he's eating well, I was making sure, I was buying him food. I was giving him protein drinks. I was doing everything to like give him more calories. And it's still every single time that we went, he was losing weight. And then the next time we went, he had low blood pressure. And then they checked his heart rate. Like they did like this, I forgot what it's called, but a test where he like sits down and stands up, and then his heart rate was low. And I kept asking her, I'm like, oh my God, what's going on? Like I think there's something going on with my son, because why is this happening? And she's like, well, because we think it's because he might have an eating disorder. So she kept thinking every single time we kept going there, she was asking him, always, what are you eating? Are you throwing up at school? Because my son used to be a chunky boy. And then all of a sudden, here's this boy who's like losing weight so drastically. And she thought because he's a high school boy, he wasn't telling me, and here's my son sitting, in the exam room looking at her, and he's telling her, no, I don't do this, but she kept like insisting, oh, well, maybe he's just not telling us. And she's saying this in front of my son. And my son is like just sitting there like, lady, what are you talking about? And then, finally, like 2 weeks, we had gone back to back, and the same thing with the low blood pressure and, the heart rate. And I'm like, this is not okay. And then that morning, the last time, like I said, I think we had gone for like almost 2 months. And then like the last time, like I was pissed. I was like, this is not okay. Like there's something very wrong with my son. I'm giving him all this extra food, and I'm, I even told him like, what, let's go have soda, McDonald's, everything to like try to like make him gain some like calories, weight, and nothing. He's still losing weight. And so my son was like, he felt defeated that morning when we went in and they weighed him again, like he looked like he wanted to cry. And that morning also, like he had stood up, because I could see my son, it was like losing a ton of weight, and you could see like his ribs and his, bones. And that morning I looked and I saw like a little bulge in his stomach. And I was like, I think there's something wrong with your stomach. And he's like, no, I don't think so. And sorry, my babies. And so when I went in there, go take him. When I went in there that morning, I think it was the morning, I told her, I said, you know what? I said, I know for a fact that there's something wrong with my son. I said, I want to see a GI doctor. I want more tests. I want scans, because in the past, the other times, like I said, when we were going, I had asked for blood tests. I had asked for scans, and she didn't do it. She did do the blood test, but the blood test showed, kind of normal. And then at one point I had even asked her, I think 2 weeks prior to this last time, get him out of here. I had asked her, could this be cancer? And she says, no, because it would have shown up in the blood. Okay. And so, like I said, that morning when we went, I told her, I said, no. I was like, I cried to her and I got angry. And I said, no. I said, there's something wrong with his stomach. And she's like, well, she asked my son, she's like, are you constipated? And when was the last time you pooped? And he's like, oh, I don't know, maybe like yesterday. And she's like, oh, I think he's constipated. That's all. I'm like, no, that's not all. And then she's like, well, lay down. So she had him like laid down on the exam table, and she felt his stomach, and she felt where his big tumor was. And she's like, oh, yeah, I think he's constipated. So she sent us home with constipation medicine, like a laxative and another type of constipation medicine. But like I told her, I said, okay, I'll do this for now. I said, but I'm not leaving here without orders for scans. I want scans. I want to know if there's something in the stomach. I don't want to just leave here thinking, you're giving me medicine. I want to know for sure. And I want to see a GI doctor. So I want orders for that. And then she's like, well, I don't think it's necessary, but we'll do it if you really want it. I'm like, yeah, I really want it. And then she's like, well, we can set up, and you could just go from here to the x-ray. It was a Friday. And so I was like, okay, good. And then she's like, but for the scans, like if you want other scans, they're probably not going to do it for like a couple weeks. And I'm like, the freak, they're not. They're going to do it sooner than a couple weeks, And like I told her, I said, I'll drive wherever. I'll drive to Bend. I'll drive to California. I'll drive wherever. I need these scans. Like I felt like there was something very wrong, like a mother's intuition, I guess. And so we went and got the x-ray, and then the next day they called, or no, later on, no, I think it was, we waited like the weekend. And then I called to find out what the scans were, and she said there's nothing on the x-ray. So I was like, oh, thank God, you know. I said, but I still need these other scans. And then so they called me, I think it was Monday or something. They called me, and then she's like, well, we can't get you in for 2 weeks. I said, no, I already had this conversation with this doctor. We're not doing no 2 weeks. I'm not waiting for no 2 weeks. I need to get him scans right away. And then she's like, well, there's nothing available. And like I told her, like I told the other doctor, I'll drive wherever I have to drive to get these done, like now. And then luckily the next day, like she looked, and then I guess somebody had canceled. Like as she was looking, like somebody had canceled. And then she's like, oh, well, I have one in the morning tomorrow. And I'm like, good, I don't care where it is, I'll drive. And luckily it wasn't too far. It was like Clackamas. And so the next morning, drove super early. It was like, you know, kind of a little bit of snow out here. I don't do snow, but I do snow for my children. And so I was like driving all, you know, trying to not to like slip and slide, because I was determined to get to these scans. And so we get to the Kaiser, and you know, he goes in for the scans. Sorry. And like my son said that he thought like he saw something, you know, in the MRI. Or not the MRI, it was the ultrasound, sorry. So he had an ultrasound first. So like, you know, he's laying there, and the girl's doing it over and over and over. And you can kind of see in her face is like changing a little, like she's like, oh shoot, you know. And then she goes, or she tells me, she's like, well, I'm gonna, you know, take this to the doctor and make sure that I got everything they need, right? But for some reason, I knew like when she walked out that it was different, you know, because I have other kids. Like I said, I have 9 kids. I've been through certain things before. And so I just had a feeling. And my son was like, Mom, I think there's something there. You know, we don't know how to read like these, you know, scans. But he's like, yeah, I think I saw something. And I was like, oh, no, let's just not think about it. And then she comes back in, and she's like, okay. She's like, well, can you guys go wait in the waiting room? And then, you know, the doctor just is going to look over them. And then I was like, oh God, here we go. So I'm like sitting there, heart's racing, because here I'm like, I'm knowing for a fact there's something going on. Once you get into the waiting room and they tell you to wait, there's something. And so we get there, we're waiting. And then all of a sudden the girl at the reception desk, like she gets a phone call, right? So here's the reception desk, here's us right here. And then she gets a phone call, and she's like, Staci Kim? And I was like, yeah. She's like, you have a phone call. I'm like, what? So I go over there, and it's the doctor that's, you know, I guess the doctor read, it wasn't our doctor, it was another doctor who read the scans, the ultrasound. And then she's like, Miss Kim, she's like, I'm so sorry. She's like, I hate to do this over the phone. And I was like, what? She's like, yeah. She's like, there's a very large mass in his stomach. We need to get him into a CAT scan immediately. We want to see if it's attached to any organs. And I was like, I broke down crying, because I'm an emotional wreck all the time usually. And so I'm crying, and my son's sitting there, and I was like, you know, obviously he knows now that something's going on, because I'm freaking crying. And so he, you know, he's such a strong boy. Like he goes and he does a CAT scan. And then, you know, we're done with that, and we're waiting again in the little waiting area. And then his doctor calls, his doctor, the one who was misdiagnosing him, saying that she thought he had an eating disorder the whole entire time. She calls, you know, and she's like, I'm so sorry, it's not looking good. I'm like, what are you talking about? It's not looking good. What? And she's like, yeah. She's like, it looks like he has a very large mass in his stomach, and it doesn't look good. I'm like, you told me it wasn't cancer. Remember, I asked you if it was cancer, and you said no, that it wasn't cancer. And she's like, I know, I'm sorry. Oh my God, what? And then at this time, like I had just had a baby. I want to say like my baby was like a month old or whatever, but I still had all this like emotions from being, you know, pregnancy hormones or whatever. And so I think that like it hit me when she said that, you know, like once she said she was sorry, it wasn't looking good. Like again, I like lost it. I started hyperventilating. I'm on the phone, and she's like, well, you have to leave and go to OHSU Dornbecker. He has to get a biopsy. Who can take you? I'm like, nobody can take me. I don't have anybody. I'm alone. You know? I just have me and my son's dad was living in Arizona at the time. Who's going to take me? I have to do it. My son didn't have a license at the time. So she's like, well, just calm down, and you got to drive. And I'm so sorry. And so sorry. I wanted to reach through the phone and like kind of just, you know, give her neck a hug. You know, like I was so mad. And so, you know, I'm just like, I'm crying again. They give me a bag because I'm like hyperventilating and hang up the phone. And then I go and like I hug my son. And then we get ready and we're like walking in the car and I'm still freaking crying the whole entire time. And then we're driving and then he like, you know, I look over like we're stopped, right? And I like look over to him and he looks at me and he's like, stop crying. And I was like, I'm so sorry. I can't, you know, I can't. He's like, no, he's like, this isn't it. He's like, this isn't the end of my story. He's like, this is just the beginning. He's like, he's like, cancer's not going to beat me. He's like, I got this, you know? And I was like, oh my God. So he was 15 at the time when, you know, this first happened. But then, so like at that moment, like I knew, I felt at that moment it was going to be okay because he felt it, you know, like he felt that God was not gonna like let him down, you know, that he was gonna get through it. And like my son has always wanted, you know, his goal, I think it still is or was to be an NFL player, right? So he's like, you know what? He's like, I'm sitting here thinking all this time that I don't have a story, you know, when I get into the NFL, what's gonna be my story? He's like, this is my story. He's like, this is gonna be my story for the NFL. This tumor that, you know, or this thing that may or may not be cancer, because we didn't know it was cancer yet. So we get to OHSU, we're like waiting there forever. Like, I feel like they didn't want to take us into the room like forever. So we're chilling there waiting for like an hour or something pass. And I go and I was like, hey, you know, don't forget about us. And so they finally took us and they put us in a room. And then he got to eat like a feast, you know, ate whatever he wanted because he wasn't going to be able to eat the next day because he had to have a biopsy. So he had to have a biopsy. And that was kind of really quick, but I can't think of the names of the surgeons, but or the ones who performed the biopsy, but they were amazing. And I just knew by looking at them, like I put my whole faith into them and God, of course. And so, you know, it was good. And we had to wait. So I want to say February 1st of 2019 is when we found out about, this is the day that we found out about the mass. But yeah, so 2 months prior we had been going. So what, maybe since like December we had been going to the doctors. And then what was I gonna say? Sorry, I lose track sometimes. But yeah, and then we had to wait, you know, because they had to talk, you know, I guess it took a little bit longer to find out the results, because when they did find out what it was, they were like shocked. They didn't know. No, they had never seen it before in a child. So actually, even so, the day after the biopsy, no, I want to say before the biopsy, that night that we were at OHSU, so we had to stay at OHSU, we had seen a child oncologist. And, you know, I'm always, you know, for the most part, I try to be like optimistic, thinking, oh, maybe it's not cancer. You know, I was trying to like hope for the best, even though I like knew in my heart it wasn't. And so we met him that night, and he's like, I'd never seen anything like this ever. And I was like, what? Like, are you serious? And he's like, yeah. He's like, it's so enormous. And he said that at this time they weren't sure how big it was yet. I'm like the weight. They just knew it was huge. They just knew it was covering this whole entire like. So this is how big it was. So like it pushed. Sorry, it pushed his organs all the way over. So like it moved pretty much every single part of his organs were like shifted, you know, and his stomach was shifted. So every time he ate, that's why he was losing so much weight, because he wasn't getting like the nutrients he needed. That huge monster was eating everything up. Please take him. And so, but yeah, so when we talked to him, he's like, yeah, he's like, I don't know. He's like, it's going to be, you know, once we do have the biopsy, we don't know, because I have to talk to people. We don't know what they're going to say about it. Like I said, I never seen this in a child before. And, you know, I was like, you gotta be kidding me, you know? And, you know, I just told him, well, I hope it's not cancer. He's like, yeah, we'll see. And I'm like, way to, you know, talk me up, buddy. But then we waited, and on February 15th, we got the awful news that it was a sarcoma, and it was one that is only seen in adults. And so I had to write it down, because I just call it retrosarcoma, but it's called retroperitoneal liposarcoma, and it's a fatty tissue usually. And then we found out after they did the biopsy. Was it biopsy? Yeah. I guess it was a well differentiated with dedifferentiated inside or something like that. But yeah, so once we found out it was cancer, we had to wait, I want to say So February 27th was when he had his surgery, and the surgery was about 12 to 14 hours. That was the worst time of my entire life, because they give you this pager, and like, you know, they try to like let you know what's going on. But it was so hard because I didn't know what that pager was going to say. It was so. And like, when we went, like before they took my son, before they wheeled him off, they were one of the other surgeons, because he had a team of surgeons. Like, he had a lot of surgeons. He had like a sarcoma specialist from OHSU, but on the adult side. And then he had a sarcoma, I don't know, like a surgeon from Kaiser. And then he had, I think, like 6 or 8 other doctors in there, like with the surgery. But before they wheeled him off, you know, he came back and he's like, you know what? He's like, we don't know what the outcome's going to be. We don't know if he's going to survive it. You know, we don't know if he's going to lose organs. We don't know what's going to happen, you know, and that right there was one of the hardest part after finding out my son had cancer, you know. And then, so like I said, they wheeled him off, and we were just sitting there waiting. And I want to say the pager, they were really, really good about giving me updates. You know, that sucker went off, I don't know how many times, you know. And then one time, like, it went off, and I was like in the restroom, and my heart was racing because I couldn't get to it. And I was like, oh my God, do I want to see it? Because I didn't know. But every single time they're like, you know, he's ready for surgery, he's doing good, it's coming out. And I was like, oh my God, what? You know? And then, so thank God, you know, it was a success, and they removed it supposedly in its entirety, but now I don't know why it's back. But yeah, so they removed it. They weighed it. It was almost 25 pounds. So that's what, 6, 12, 18, 20. So that's the size about 4 babies, like 6-pound babies that my son was carrying with him in his stomach, you know, for all this time. We don't know how long he had it. And actually, yeah, going back really quick, like, you know, before we started going to his, you know, appointments, there was a time where he was playing, you know, he was playing football. It was during football season, you know, and then he kept getting these cramps, right? He had never gotten cramps. I mean, like I said, my son's been playing football since kindergarten, but he had started getting like really bad cramps, like in his legs. And I was pregnant at the time. And so he would cramp up and he would like fall to the ground, right? And all the football coaches and everybody's like, oh, he's dehydrated. He needs water. He's not eating properly. Everybody again he's not eating properly. I'm like, what the hell? Are you trying to tell me I don't know how to feed my children? Like, that was kind of starting to piss me off, let me tell you, you know, because I'm like, who the heck do they think they are? And so, but yeah. And so looking back, we're like, holy sugar, you know, this is probably the reason that my son was having all these cramps playing football, because he was dehydrated, and it was because he had a 25-pound tumor in his stomach while he was playing football, you know, and we had no idea. And so, so he going back to the surgery days. So thank God, they were able to remove it. They said it wasn't attached to any organs, but kind of found out a little later that it was attached to organs. But it wasn't too attached that they needed to remove any. Go. And, so yeah, but it was awesome, because going back, like, while my son was in surgery, like, you know, I believe that God healed my son. I believe that God saved my son. I had prayer chains. I had prayer people that were like praying at certain times, you know, and at one point I closed my eyes and I could see, you know, God and Jesus there with the surgeons around my son. And so I just knew I knew my son was going to be okay. And so, but when he came out, like, they called me, they, you know, did the pager, and they said, it's over. He's done. He's in recovery. And oh, I just broke down crying. That was like the best news. And then, so when it was time to go back to my lovely son who was coming out of the drugs, that was the best. I have a video of him. So he loves the movies, Fast and Furious. And so for some reason, he was like thinking all this Fast and the Furious, right? And he was like, you know, he has a tube down his throat and he sounds like a man, you know, when he's talking because of that tube. And so he's like, what did he say?
I'm Vin Diesel.
No, he's like, don't let them know. Don't tell them about the truck. And I'm like, what? He's like, yeah, don't tell them we're about to steal the truck. I'm like, what are we talking about? He's like, yeah. He's like, it's all about the family. And I'm like, baby, what are you talking about? He's like, I'm Vin Diesel. But it was the best because, you know, here's my son who just had this almost 25-pound tumor, you know, removed from his stomach, you know, and here he is just like the most perfect being ever, you know, and he's just hearing his voice. It was just amazing. And so after that, we went into his room, and they kept us on the 9th floor. So 9th floor is a surgery ward. Oh, wait, just you. Sorry. He loves me. Oh my goodness. This is my Landon. My dirty boy. Hi, bye. Get him now. And so we go into the floor and, you know, they do his recovery and it's the scariest sight ever because he's attached to all these different tubes and tubes are coming out of, I'm not going to ask you again. Tubes are coming out of his, you know, his stomach and his side and his mouth and things are draining from everywhere. And so I had never seen anything like that in my entire life. And so it was very scary. The first 24 hours was very scary because he kept gagging on the tube that was down his throat. And then every time he would gag, like he made this awful sound and if you know, the pain medicine was wearing off, so they had to keep trying to give him more medicine. But it was so hard because I kept like, you know, and I kept like crying. And then this one nurse, he was like, stop doing that. And he's like, you're not doing any good for your son. I was like, I'm so sorry. You know, he's like, don't make him scared. And I was like, you know what? My son is tougher than I am. Let me just tell you that much, you know, so he's not scared of nothing. But yeah. And so thank God the next day he was able to get more things out of him. You know, I think like his, like he had something that was draining from his pancreas. So that tube, I think, was taken out within 24 hours. He was attached to like a urine bag that didn't leave for like maybe 4 or 5 days. The tube, they actually took that tube out within less than 24 hours. And then, so it seemed like he was doing pretty good actually. And so the doctor came in and, I am video. Thank you. Sorry. And so one of the surgeons had come to see him, one of the ones who had performed the surgery. And he's like, how you doing? And Christian's like, oh, good. And then he's like, you ready to eat? And I was like, ready to eat? Like he just had this, you know, huge surgery. Here's like all these staples down his stomach, you know, and what's he going to eat? Like, you know, and he's like, well, you know what? He did an amazing job in surgery. He can eat whatever he wants. And I was like, what? Really? He's like, yeah, he hadn't eaten for a while. You know, he's a teenager. He could eat whatever he wants. And I was like, wow, okay, whatever. You know, you're the doctor. You know it all. And so my son ordered pizza, cheesecake, and salad, and, you know, milkshake. And so I was like, oh, my God. I'm like freaking out over here, right? And then so he eats. And I want to say not even a half hour later, he's like throwing up, right? And I was like, oh my God. So I'm like freaking out because he's like throwing up over and over and over. I was like, what's going on? Then they're like, oh, it just went down wrong, you know, but then he kept throwing up and nothing working. You know, they were trying to give him some kind of like nausea medicine to not throw up, but then he kept throwing up. And so finally, like, they're like, well, we got to put the tube back in. I was like, oh, come on now. And the tube had to go back in because they had to drain more of his stomach because they felt that whatever was in his stomach wasn't letting him eat. And so they did that. And so my poor guy, you know, he had to get that stupid crap down his throat again. But then this time it wasn't going right. So he kept like, you know, choking it up, you know, and it was the hardest thing to watch because here, you know, he already went through all this other stuff and now he has to go, you know, put that thing down his tube mouth again. And so that lasted, I don't know, another day or so. And then they let him eat again. But he threw up again. And I just told him, I said, you know what? This whole eating thing isn't working. You know, I don't understand why we didn't do it slowly. Like maybe some broth, you know, maybe some soup with like nothing in it. Like, why are you just letting this child, I have something in my nose, you know, eat regular food? Like, it doesn't make any sense. He just had this huge surgery. And they're like, well, we've never done this before. We're just, you know, trying to see what works. And I was like, so you're using my son as a guinea pig, really? And they're like, well, you know, we don't know. We've never dealt with this before. Kid with an almost 25-pound tumor, you know? And then my son was like losing weight. sorry, he kept like losing weight while we were there. Oh no, going back. So after the throwing up episodes, before that, I had talked to the doctor, and he was like, well, or I said, when do you think, realistically we could be going home? He's like, oh, over the weekend. I was like, wow, you're very optimistic. That seems like super soon for like a huge surgery. And he's like, no, everything looks fine. We'll be good. And that's when he let him eat. And then that's when we, my son started dealing with all this stuff. And then, so the eating didn't work. He was still throwing up. And they said, well, we want to go in and we want to look what's going on with him, why he's throwing up. It could be other issues. So my son went and did all kinds of new x-rays and new CAT scans. I want to say he probably had about 7 to 8 x-rays and another CAT scan just to try to find out what was wrong with him. And they said that there was something that was like blocking his, because his stomach. So they said that his stomach, like once they took out that tumor, his stomach didn't know where it belonged, because all the organs, I guess, have their place. And so when they took the tumor out, it was just hollow, and so the stomach had to go back to where it belonged. And so the stomach was having issues with that. And then I guess my son had something that was blocking, that was like closing up, and I can't think of the name, but it was closing up, and so he wasn't even able to eat. So they put my son on a feeding tube. So my son was on a feeding tube there, and he still was not progressing. He still was losing weight. Like it seemed like nothing was working right. And I was like, what is going on? Why is all this problem? I was to the point where I wanted to, I was looking at other hospitals thinking, okay, well, something happened here because my son's not getting better. He had the surgery and he's still losing weight. Like, even after they had given him like the feeding tube. And so I had switched with my ex at the time, because I was at the hospital. I stayed with my son at the hospital 25 out of the 27 days. I didn't want to leave his sight. I had a new baby at home. I didn't really even see my new baby for like that time. I think I saw him maybe 4 or 5 times, maybe the whole entire 25 days, because I just felt like I couldn't leave my son. And so, but like one of the days that I had come to check on the baby, get the baby out of here. I told his dad, I said, well, you know what? I'm not there, but I'm looking into other hospitals because I want to know what the heck is going on with my son. It's been 20, I think at that time it had been like 18 days or something. I said, it's been 18 days. I'm not getting results. Get out. Sorry. It's been 18 days. We're not getting results. It's getting worse. Either something's going to change or I'm going to get him out of this hospital. I already talked to, I think I had called, Pennsylvania, one of the children's hospital in Pennsylvania. And then I was just waiting for them to get back to me because I was like, I'll take him anywhere. Again, this is my child. I'm not going to play around. People are going to give me answers because I'm not going through, he's not going to keep going through stuff. There's no reason for it. And then so I called his dad and because I traded spots. So he was at the hospital and I was here. And then I told him, I said, I want answers. You better call the oncologist and tell him I want a meeting. And if he's not there, then we're done. I'm out. I'm taking my son somewhere else. And so he agreed to it. And the oncologist came and he's like, well, you know what? He's like, so I went back to the hospital and he said, your son is pretty much a miracle. We weren't even sure he was going to make it that day during surgery. Like he sitting here is a miracle. And that's what he told me. He's like, so you can't expect, things to go perfect. I'm like, no, that's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying that why did we have to have all this extra x-rays? Why did you guys let him eat all the stuff, that he shouldn't have eaten, that affected him, added to the problems, and then this is what he told me, because for the whole entire time, so that when we were there at the hospital and all these nurses and all these doctors, going around talking about my son, the miracle child, and that this huge, almost 25-pound tumor was just kind of sitting on top of all the organs, not attached, nothing, kind of like floating in the air, right? And I was like, wow, that is a miracle, right? And then the oncologist, this kid oncologist, says, well, it was attached to organs. And I'm like, oh, really? Like, this is something new to me. I said, because from everybody else and from even the doctors that performed the surgery said that it wasn't attached to any organ. So obviously this makes more sense that he's having issues with all these, organs that it was attached to. And so if I would have had a straight answer the first time, I wouldn't be questioning everything, because now since the misdiagnosis, I don't trust anybody. I need extra, like I want to know extra. I want to talk to other people. And so, but yeah, so that was good. He explained everything and I was okay with it. Kept my mouth shut for a minute. And then, we were out of there like, Yeah, so he was there for 27 days. I was there for 25. My son came and was on a feeding tube still at home for like a month. And he wasn't supposed to eat anything, right? Like he was on, I want to say, one of the higher doses of the, I don't even remember what it's called, but like the kid liquid, you know? It's like food protein. So he was on that for like, I think 20 hours out of the day. And then 2 hours a day he was on water. I don't know. He was on it for like a long period of time. Or wait, maybe he was off for 4 hours. Maybe I did the calculation wrong. But anyways, but my poor kid, you know, because he didn't want the portable one. So he was in his room the whole entire time. So the whole month that we were home, so he was at the feeding tube for like 2 weeks or 3 weeks at the hospital. And then like another month at the house. And so he was in his room the whole entire time, you know, like a little hermit. And so, but I didn't know because he wasn't supposed to eat anything, right? I didn't know he was like snacking and stuff. So this chick over here, she tells me, she's like, Mom, she's like, I don't know if I should tell you. I'm like, tell me what? She's like, Christian's been like snacking. I'm like, snacking on what? I'm like getting upset, right? I'm like, he's not supposed to eat anything. It's going to mess up the feeding tube. And, you know, I'm all paranoid, right? Because I don't want to, because when he was at the hospital on the feeding tube, a couple times it came out, right? And so he had to have it go back for x-rays and put it back in. And so it hurt him every single time it went in. So it broke my heart, right? And so I didn't want anything to affect him. And so she's like, Mom, he was eating peanut butter. I'm like, that's kind of smooth. I guess that's okay. And then like I go upstairs another day and I see like a Nutella jar. And I was like, And I'm like, Christian, are you eating? No. And I was like, okay, you better not, because we don't want to go through this again. We don't want to have to keep you on longer. You know, you want to go back to your own life. You know, you're back to school and everything, right? Don't mess it up. It's like, no, I'm good. So we had to make sure he was like gaining weight, right? Before they can get him off the feeding tube. So like, we went to the doctors and they weighed him, and that same day, you know, the doctor says, well, you know what? He's doing good. He's gaining weight. It seems like we could take it off, like, you know, the feeding tube. So, you know, they took the huge, I mean, it was so long. I can't even tell you how long it was. It was super, super long. And attached to the feeding tube was Nutella. So you could tell he had been eating Nutella. So he was sneaking Nutella. He was sneaking peanut butter. And then the doctor's like, hey, you want to keep it for like, you know, sentimental? And I'm like, heck no. So that was done. And then, so my son kind of went back to school like not a month. So he got out of the hospital, I want to say like April, end of March, April. And he was supposed to go back to school. I don't know. Anyway, I think he went back to school like a week before, you know, they said he could, because he was like, I'm out of here. He didn't want nothing to do with me. He didn't want nothing to do with this. Anybody that was home, he would just want to go back to school. So we went back to school, went back full force. Like they said he could go back, you know, half day, maybe a couple hours. No, he was gone the whole entire day. Like he was gone from morning to, you know, afternoon. He just wanted to be done. And then he right away, like once the doctor cleared him, you should tell Christian to come and say hi. Once the doctor cleared him, he was back into weight training. He was getting ready for football, which was in spring. And so I was like, oh my God, what? Like, are you serious? And he's like, yeah. He's like, this isn't going to stop me. He's like, it's, you know, it's removed. I'm good. I feel healthy. You know, I'm going to go back and I'm going to live my life. He's like, I'm not going to let this, you know, interfere with anything. And I was like, oh my God. And then, so like football, I want to say he like started playing like spring ball, like right away, like within like less than 2 months, he was back playing. And then their first game, which I can't, my brain stopped working for a second, but you know, his first game, and he was out there, and of course I cried. I was so emotional because, you know, I'm like, here's a strong boy who like had this huge tumor, you know, and he's gonna come and say hi really quick. This is my Christian. Come here. This is my Christian Kim.
Christian, what's going on, brother? How you doing?
Hey,
Can you hear me?
I'm doing pretty good right now.
That's good. That's good to hear, brother.
Yeah, I can.
We're hearing your story, brother. Your mom is sharing your story with us, brother. Powerful stuff, man. Powerful stuff. I want to let you know, man, that you have a big brother here with me, and you have a whole community behind you, brother. And it's kids like you. It's young men like you. You're my hero, brother. You're my hero. So I just I've been following your story, and I've been talking to your mom. So I just wanted to tell you, thank you. Thank you for inspiring me. Thank you for inspiring all these other kids. I mean, just what your mom is saying right now. And there's a lot of kids that are watching these stories that we upload on YouTube. A lot of kids that are going through what you're going, and even teenagers such as you that are going through it. It's such an honor to be able to speak to you. It's an honor to be talking to you, and just your mentality and your faith and your that mentality of not giving up and keep fighting. Which you are doing right now. I just wanted to say thank you, brother. Thank you, and I'm praying for you. You have a lot of people on your corner and your goal corner, and fighting along with you. So, man, I would really, really appreciate it if you could just give us a couple of words, and for these other children and these kids and these teenagers that are going through the same thing. What can you tell them, brother? I know that would help them so much.
Thank you, man. I really appreciate it. Something that I really think about when I'm thinking about cancer is it's something hard to deal with, but what I got to go by is we really do only live once. But if we we make the right steps and we do everything in our possibilities that we can do, every opportunity we can take, once is enough.
Yeah.
There you go. There you go. I mean, thank you, honestly. And you know what, brother? God is not done with you yet. And you are going to be a living testimony. And you're going to go through life and you're going to live a long time. And you're going to change the world, brother. You are going to change the world. You are going to make a difference. You're making a difference right now. So I know there's going to be a lot of people that are looking up to you, such as myself. So thank you so much. And trust me, brother, we're going to keep on with you, fighting no matter what comes this way. Just know that God's in control, that God has always been in control no matter what happens. And I can't wait, brother. I pray and I declare healing over your life, and I'm going to watch you grow up. And hey, man, when you catch your first NFL touchdown, or when you get your first sack in the NFL, I want to be able to say, hey, I talked to him, and you should hear his story, brother. I believe in you, and I know that God's gonna heal you 100%, brother. And thank you once again for inspiring me and inspiring all of us, man. That means so much, brother.
Thank you too. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right, I'll see you later.
All right, brother. Thank you.
Okay, yeah. So
no, Staci, thank you, man.
Sorry.
That really, yeah, no. Wow.
Well, I wanted to get in before I finished. We're not even done with the stories. I still have so much more to talk about. But I knew if I didn't grab him, he was not gonna say anything. And I had to grab him when I had the chance. So what we're saying. So going back to, after my son, went back to school, football, it was the best of the best, He even at one point, so this last time when he was going to Tualatin High School, and then he switched to Tigard High School. And so when he switched to Tigard, sorry, I'm moving my thing. When he switched to Tigard High School, again, you would think I would know all these positions. My son's been playing since he was little. But anyway, so when he switched to Tigard, he was, I think, the running back. So he was the running back 2 times. And he actually made the goal. And so that was the best thing ever, so I got to see him in all these different positions. But no, he had been just living life and being a teen, and he was going for scans every 3 to 4 months, MRI, and then he would have an MRI, and then 3 or 4 months later they would have the CAT scan, so they would alternate. And then, everything was good. We were good. He was good. It was perfect. And this time, our last scan was September 26th. And that scan was, we thought it was going to be a normal MRI scan, in and out. This time it took a little longer to hear. I mean, usually they don't call me right away. Sorry. Usually they don't call me right away. I have to call them. And that's the hardest thing ever, because almost everybody else that I know that their kid has cancer, they know right away, right? But in my case, because it goes from Kaiser, which is our, medical, it goes from Kaiser to HSU. It takes longer, right? So I'm usually the one who wants to call. And so this time, I feel like Christian knew what was going on this time because, he had weird pains off and on. And actually, like, I want to say a couple of times I actually took him to the doctor. One time I took him to emergency room because he was having pains in his stomach, kind of where his cancer was before. I go there and, every time I go, I always have to explain, I want extra. I've been through this. I'm not going through this again. So I want results right away. I'm not going to like have you guys tell me one thing when it's completely, it's like something else. Sorry. And so when I took them, they're like, well, he doesn't have, like his blood is fine. And, no, he had like blood in his urine. And so I was like, wow, that doesn't seem right because last time when he had cancer, he had blood in his urine, and they're like, well, we'll just keep an eye on it. And so I had gone after that a couple times and I did the blood, I did urine analysis, and then the other times it showed less blood in his urine. So it was, I guess they were like, oh, he's fine. And then when we left or before we left the ER, when he was having the issues, they're like, well, we don't want to give him an MRI. We'll just do an ultrasound. I'm like, why are we not doing an MRI? And they're like, well, you're going to have an MRI soon because his scans were coming up. And they're like, we'll just do an ultrasound. If there's something there, we'll see it. I was like, you better be right. And so did the ultrasound, came back clear. And they're like, well, just stay out of football for a little bit, like get some rest, get some pain medicine, you'll be good. Then that went away. And then, this MRI comes, and I want to say the night before the results, the night before the results, hold on one second. Can you please take him completely take him upstairs. Take him outside or something. Sorry. 9 o'clock out or 7 o'clock, just take him outside. No. But yeah, but this time, so he called me, right? So earlier the day before the results, my son called me and he was like, Mom, he's like, do you have the results yet? And I said, no, not yet. He's like, well, I think I lost like 10 pounds. And I was like, what? He's like, yeah. He's like, because, before this last MRI, my son was, he has just started the learning school again, the homeschool, whatever. He would work out in the morning. He was about to go to weight training again for football. So he had like a routine, that he was doing. He was eating right and doing certain things. And so he was checking his weight. And so he had told me that he thought he had lost 10 pounds. And I was praying, that it wasn't because of what was about to happen. And then he's like, well, have you heard? I'm like, no, not yet, but I'll call tomorrow. And so later on that night, when I get home, he's like, I'm anxious. He's like, I feel like something's wrong. He's like, I feel like it's back. And I was like, no, don't say that. I'm like, it's not back, And then, so get off. So I call the doctor the next morning. And I said, you know what? I said, I need these results. I said, I'm tired of waiting. I said, I don't understand why. I'm the only one out of everybody else that has to wait. Why can't I have results the same day like everybody else? And so they're like, I'm so sorry, the doctor, let me get to the doctor. And I was like, well, somebody's going to need to call me. I need to know like now. I'm tired. I'm anxious. I have scanxiety is what, I go through waiting for the scan results. Like I can't take it. I'm very anxious. I'm a very anxious person when it comes to my children. And so, she's like, well, he's here. Let me have him call you back. And so he calls me back and he's like, hi, sorry. He's like, sorry, did you get the scan today? I'm like, no, I didn't get it today. I'm like, I got it a couple days ago. So you should have the results and I should be able to know what it is. And then he's like, oh, okay, well, let me look. And he's like, oh yeah, you're right. You did get it a couple days. Yeah, I got it a couple days. And then he's like, well, and he was quiet. And I knew when he was quiet that there was something wrong. And so he gets back on the phone and he was like, I'm sorry that, to tell you over the phone. And I was like, well, you know what? I get all my information over the phone. Usually this is how it's been happening since the first cancer diagnosis. Why is this any different? And he's like, well, I'm sorry to tell you, but there's a mass and it's alarming. He's like, so we're thinking it's a reoccurrence. And so, I start like crying, of course, and freaking out. And I was like, this can't be happening. Like, I was like in shock when he told me, like, I felt like it wasn't real. Cause I'm like, you know what? It had been 20 months you know, that he was cancer free, or so we thought he was cancer free. You know, my son even got his driver's license a week before. You know, he wanted his driver's license so bad that his sister took him 2 weeks before all the way to Corvallis, which is like what, I think 2 hours away, almost 3 hours away from where we live. And then I, being the like adoring mother that I am, I drove him over 2 hours to get his driver's license, you know, picture. And that was a week prior. And I couldn't imagine what we were hearing. I was like, this is a joke. This isn't right. Like, we're not going through this again. He's not going to go through this again. Like, are you serious? And he's like, I'm so sorry. He's like, you know, I know this isn't what you wanted to hear. Of course not. Of course it's not what I want to hear. And then, so he's like, well, I'm going to talk to his other oncologist. Should I go to the other room? And we're going to get a game plan, you know? And then, so his dad calls and tries to find out a little bit more information, because I'm like crying, you know, like big crybaby. And so he found out it was like 3 to 4 inches is what we're dealing with right now. We don't know how deep it is. It is wrapped around a kidney, so it's different than last time. At least last time, supposedly it wasn't wrapped around any organs. It was just kind of hanging out on top of them, or, you know, attached, but very, very lightly, to where supposedly they could have gotten clear margins. But looking back now, they didn't. And so he had to go for an MRI on Saturday, which was a couple days after we got the results. So going back to my son's situation. So I get off the phone, and my son was literally like walking through the door, and I was crying. And then he's like, you know, he looked at me, he's like, what? Will this work? I don't know how this works.
There's a mic.
Oh, and, sorry. And so anyways, so he was walking through the door, and I'm crying, and he's like, really? He's like, I knew. He's like, you know, I knew it. He's like, I just freaking knew it. And then he goes upstairs really mad and, you know, upset and everything. And then, like, yeah, for the first couple of days, it was really hard. He was really mad. I was really mad. Sad. Not happy at all. Like, it's not okay. No kid should have cancer. No child should be dealing with this. And so after, like, you know, I had my days. I had to have my days. You know, even though I have kids at home, I have 5 kids at home. Like, when I get, like, the first time this happened, like, it was so hard for me. Like, I was like alone, you know, like my ex was in Arizona. He had to come back. And this time, you know, my older daughter who's living with me wasn't living with me. And so I texted my older kids, you know, who don't live with me. And I was telling them what's going on. And everybody's trying to call me at the same time. And I was like, I can't talk to anybody, you know, because I couldn't even get a word in, you know. I'm like devastated. And then me and one of my daughters, you know, we were having a little issue, you know. And all of a sudden, I was done with that issue. She was done with that issue. You know, I was like, I need you here, because I can't cope. I can't be with your little brother who's a crazy kid over here. No, you know, I can't deal with any of this, you know. And then I'm doing the whole home online learning, you know, so I have to help my 6-year-old from frickin' 8:30 in the morning till 2:30. I can't do this. I can't frickin' function, you know. And so I told the teacher, you know, I texted and I told her, I said, you know, I can't do it. My son is not going to just go for a week. I can't, you know, he's freaking first grade. He don't need to just go for no week. You know, I just needed that time to get my head together, you know, because I'm here thinking everything is changing all over again. You know, our life is completely going to turn upside down again. You know, I'm going to be at the hospital with get away from that. Sorry, my thing keeps falling. You know, I'm going to be at the hospital with my son for I don't know how long. I'm going to be away from my kids for I don't know how long. Like, I just needed to process everything, and my son needed to process everything. And then so we had our days, you know, like I could tell my son was crying, but he doesn't like to show emotion, you know. But the 2 times that I like saw him throughout that day, you know, because he just wanted to hang out with friends, could tell in his eyes he had been crying, you know. And here's this big macho football boy, you know, who doesn't show like emotion, but I knew, you know, he was crying. I could see it in his eyes. And so But yeah. And then, so he had his MRI for his brain to make sure the cancer didn't spread. And then he had a chest x-ray to make sure it didn't go to his lungs. And thank you, thank you God, it has not spread. So, oh, that's like the best news ever. Like, oh man, God heard all of our prayers, you know, because once all this happens, Mama's on the prayer chains. Mama's like Facebooking, and you know, I need the prayers, I need the prayer shawl, I need, you know, this, that, and the other, praying to my saints. I'm doing it all, you know. So like the holy mama comes back out. But yeah, so thank God all that is like clear, so we don't have to worry about that. All we have to worry about is what they're gonna. Oh, I'm so bad at this whole video thing. I'm so sorry. But hold on, I'm gonna try to fix it. Okay, one more time. So anyway, so now we're just waiting. You're done. Now we're just waiting to hear this week from the oncologist, because he said he wanted to talk to other oncologists and adult oncologists and child oncologists, because my son is almost an adult, and even though he's still a kid, like they want to talk to like the, you know, higher up people who have dealt with this before, which I'm all for too, because I freaking sent his whole, you know, his recent MRI results. I sent it to I sent it to you know, another oncologist in California that's the best of the best, because I want to make sure we do this the right way. My phone might be dying. And so anyway, so we're just waiting to get, maybe this week we'll find out what they're going to do, because they might want to do chemo this time, radiation this time, maybe some sort of medication they didn't do last time, because they did not do the surgery. They didn't get it last time, is pretty much what the doctor said to me, that it had been there since day one, since the day of the surgery. It had been there, left there. And it just wasn't big enough to show up on the MRIs, or the CAT scan, which boggles my mind, because I'm thinking, okay, it's been 20 months, because every 3 to 4 months. So all this extra time he had radiation, they did it for what reason? If it wasn't going to show up, like, it doesn't make sense to me, you know, like, why would they do it if knowing it wasn't big enough, you know, because he said it had to be a certain size before it would show up. Okay. But he had other symptoms, you know, again, the stomach pains, and, you know, a couple times he had thrown up, you know, and then the blood, but nobody thought it was cancer again. But yeah, so we're just waiting to see. They say he will 1,000% have to have surgery again. So yeah, so we're just waiting.
Yeah. and that is one thing that upsets me, obviously, is when we talk about the 4% that our kids are getting. That is where it's going. Unfortunately, you know, 4% of cancer research goes to kids. That's why all of this misdiagnosis. I mean, every parent that I've spoken to, including myself, we're all a part of misdiagnosis, misstaging, you know, because the doctors don't know. And not that they're not good doctors, it's just that they don't have the resources, because they don't have the funding to help. And there again, people think childhood cancer is rare, and it's not.
Not rare.
You know,
I'm so tired of that word. I'm so sick of them saying it's rare. It's rare. No, it's not rare.
It's
at
not.
all.
No, it's not. And what I tell people, it's not a St. Jude commercial that you see. It's not these little happy kids.
Oh my God. You know what? I lost friends because of this. Because you know what? One of the times, like when my son was in the hospital, I was pissed, because I'm like, you know what? St. Jude cancer is not all those cute little kids with the bald hair walking around St. Jude's and getting the perfect health. That's not cancer. Cancer is the kids throwing up and vomiting and blood and losing hair and freaking having huge tumors, liquids coming out here and there, crying. It's not all roses like they try to portray. That makes me mad. I'm like,
yeah,
you know
no, it infuriates me. And here on the YouTube
they
channel,
need to have more real kids.
exactly. And I think it was in episode 6 that we talked to, that I spoke to some parents of Warrior Bentley. They were being treated at St. Jude, and they're like, well, let me let you know. And they actually described it as a war zone in there. There's barf
Oh,
bags
I
all
did.
over. There's kids with missing limbs. And see, this is what people don't see. This is what people are not aware of. And that's
No,
what we
because they
want
don't
to make
want it to
people.
be seen.
Exactly.
They don't want to show exactly, because you know what? I feel like if they did show exactly, then maybe more people would care about it. Maybe we'll get the funding. But no, they want to keep it PG. No.
No, it's not.
We need to like show it. That's why. And I posted my son's huge tumor, and this girl was like, "How dare you post that?" What? Are you kidding me? I will post what I want on my own page, and I'm telling you, this is my son. I'm showing you what a kid went through. Misdiagnosis of a doctor who didn't want to believe, didn't want to take the extra time to freaking pay attention to my kid. All she wants is money. She wants to go from patient to patient to patient. No, I don't think so. That's not how this is gonna work. And so when I, sorry, I'm very
Yeah.
That's like when I went. So when my son went to the hospital, we were on the news, right? Because I was like friends of a news reporter person, right? And I told her about my story, and she's like, oh my god, you know. And I was like, yeah. I'm like, but it's about the cancer. I said, but it's also about speaking up. You know, if you feel like something's wrong, if you know something's wrong, you need to speak up. You need to let it be known that you want more tests. You know, you want this, that, and the other. Go see another doctor. Go ask for things, especially if it's your child. You know, don't let it go. Like, I feel like, man, if I would have maybe opened my mouth maybe like a month sooner, maybe we would have found this a month sooner. But I was listening to the stupid doctor. I was like, oh, she knows what she's talking about. You know, she has a medical degree. She knows. No, she didn't know. She didn't know at all. And she's, man, don't let me get that started. But so when I went to the hospital, you know, and like people had heard my story, you know, nurses and stuff, they're like, oh my God, they're like, thank you for this. I'm so glad I met you because of you, I feel like I could speak up. And I never, you know, thought I could tell my doctor what I felt was wrong and what needed to be done. And I wanted this, that, and the other, you know. And another, this girl, her dad, right? She takes care of her dad. And she's like, I feel like we're not getting the proper treatment, you know. And I'm like, well, speak up. If you don't speak up, nobody's gonna know, you know. And if you don't feel like you're gonna hurt their feelings, who cares, you know? I don't care, you know. I like I said, now I had to change doctors. Like, we have another doctor, and he's so amazing. So anything is wrong, anytime anything is wrong with my kids, I'm more paranoid. Any little bump and bruise and cough and this, that, and the other, I'm like calling the doctor, you know. And they know, this new doctor, I don't play around, you know. You're gonna get me what I want now, because we're gonna have big problems if you don't. Like, yeah.
Right. And that's one thing that I always ask parents, if they want to, what would they tell other parents? And I think you hit it like right on the spot. And every parent says the same thing, including myself. Speak up. You're an advocate for these kids. You know what I mean? It doesn't matter if you piss people off. It doesn't matter if you know, because these are your kids. Because ultimately, you're the one that's fighting there with them. These people, if they have perfectly healthy kids, they go home to their family and that's it. They come back the next day. But not us. We have to live there, and we have to live this nightmare. So no, exactly.
Well, you know,
so we need to speak up.
Yeah, if I wouldn't have spoke up, if I would have continued to go, because she wanted to keep going, my son would have died. 1000% he would have died, because it was killing him. Like, I don't know if I sent you all the, you know, the pictures to show, if you like, where he was the bone, you could see his bones, his like skeleton, you know. And she still didn't think there was anything wrong, but an eating disorder.
No, like, that's
really?
horrible. That's bad.
You know. And this is the thing, because my son even said, like, you know, when he got interviewed before for the news station, that, you know, he felt like defeated, you know. He felt like he was doing something wrong, you know. And I still to this day remember my son sitting on that freaking exam table, and this person telling him and me, I think it could be an eating disorder. And my son, with that look on his eyes, like, what? You know. And he looked sad, because he looked like, lady, you're not believing me, you know. And there's certain things I won't get out of my head. I can't get out of my head, and that's one of them, you know, because this whole time my son had cancer, and she thought it was an eating disorder, and he could have literally died. He was like maybe less than a month away from dying. He would have died 1000%. And if I didn't have the mouth that I have. No.
And it's the two things that I don't know if that's what they're trained to do is, hey, there's an eating disorder and they're constipated. That's their answer for everything. Oh, they're constipated. They're constipated. Here's some Miralax. Here's something to help them. You go to the restroom.
that was what we got. One of them was Miralax. Yeah. And then and also we got, so she got me so when we were at the hospital doing all this stuff, she got us a dietitian, you know, and what is it, not physical, like the people who what are they called, shrink, like a therapist.
Really?
Yeah, so she thought, because his dad wasn't living here at the house, and she thought because he wasn't eating right and because it was stress at the house and there was issues at the house, blah blah blah, that he was taking it hard, that he was having a hard time with it, you know, that he couldn't cope. What are you talking about? My son don't give a crap. He's too busy playing football and hanging out with friends that care about me and what's going on with his dad. Like, are you serious? You know, his dad wasn't living here. Okay. Well, that didn't cause any kind of issues, you know? And then his football coach pissed me off. This one pissed me off because before my son's diagnosis, before, like, the day, I want to say it was the day before I took him, right? So the coach talked to my son, right? And my son told me this, right? And he's like, Mom, he's like, you know, my coach asked if there was anything going on at the house. I'm like, what do you mean? He's like, yeah. He's like, he asked if we needed any food. I'm like, huh? He's like, yeah, because he didn't think I was eating properly. I'm like, man, he can come and look at my refrigerator. I have the most food for you guys. You guys eat all the time. Like, and it kind of made me a little upset because I thought, well, in a way, okay, nice, whatever. But in a way, you're kind of making it seem like I don't take care of my own children. I've always taken care of my children. My children come first no matter what. I would eat like nothing and give all my kids the food. Like, it pissed me off because I'm like, that didn't seem right. Like, he made it seem because his dad was gone, you know, that I wasn't feeding my kids. Like, what are you talking about? And so he felt really stupid when I emailed him and I had told him, I said, you know what, thank you so much for your, you know, you being concerned for my child, but I know what I feed my kid. We do not need food, but thank you again for offering. That was a nice gesture, you know, but we're good. Christian is good. You know, I think he's sick. I think he might have something going on with him, and I have a doctor's appointment for him, you know, and then the very next day, boom, find out he has a mass. So he was quiet, you know? Like, it's, I don't know. I'm gonna walk. Could I walk with you for a second because I need my charger?
Yeah, no, that's fine. Yeah, well, I mean, we're about to finish here also. But before we do, Staci, I know that you have a fundraiser and you also have a GoFundMe. I know it's difficult, and especially now, I know you're going to be going through, like you said, he's going to need surgery once again, and you still don't know if he's going to be going back into chemotherapy or radiation or any of that. So I know that you do have a GoFundMe and you do have a fundraiser. I'm gonna go ahead and be putting those links up, but can you talk to us just a little bit before we finish the story here?
Yeah, so we just sorry, got really dark in here. So one of my friends just set up a GoFundMe for us, because again, we don't know if he's gonna have radiation, chemo, medication. Last time it was super hard on us. His dad was out of work. We were almost evicted from our place. Bills were adding up. It was just crazy. I still have 5 kids at home. So he put that up for us. We will be putting that up actually this weekend. And then I also did a fundraiser t-shirt and masks for my son. And I don't know where my mask went because my children like to get a hold of my stuff. So yeah, sorry. But so this time around, we decided to show my son more support because last time I feel like we didn't really have that much. You know, I had never dealt with cancer. I didn't really know a bunch of people, you know, cancer parents. So I didn't know what to do. So we didn't do any of like the fundraisers. So we did a fundraiser for a shirt for my son, Christian, strong. And then masks because the coronavirus. So that is going on right now, and I think it ends October. Is on for like the next 3 weeks.
Okay.
So yeah, and then I have like a Venmo that I think we can attach. I don't know. Again, we didn't really do half this stuff last time, but it was very hard because we had a lot of bills. Bills just piled up. People just do not know how expensive cancer is. Mm-hmm. You know, they have no clue. Yeah. You know. Yeah. But other people. So.
Well, okay.
Yeah. So I don't know.
Well, all that information, Stacy, as soon as you give it to me, when you give it to me, by the time this video is edited and uploaded, we'll have all of that information in the description. And just again, right before we finish, just one last thing that you would like to tell everybody here who's watching your story. What will you tell parents that are going through the same thing as you are, and something you would like to leave us with?
I just want to maybe let parents know to look for resources. Get into Facebook groups, meet parents like yourself, because it's hard doing it alone. Like, it's so super hard. Like, last time I was so alone, so overwhelmed. It's easier when there's others who have been in the same boat as you are. This whole situation is very, very hard, but it does make it a tiny bit easier, being able to talk to other people who've dealt with it. Just be strong for your kids, even though even if you cry, like me, I cry all the time. Just let your kids know how much you love them and hug them all the time, kiss them. Like, I tell my son, I'm like, man, you're such a pain in the butt, but I just love you so much. And I would die for my kids, like, I am just, again, I'm like in shock that this is happening again, but
yeah. But we know that nothing is impossible for God, Stacy, and we know that.
Oh yeah, even God, trust God, because God is it. Like,
yeah,
I tell you, like, the other day I was having the hardest time, and I was so angry. I was so angry. And, I went to the store because I was like, oh my gosh, I got to look for pajamas for my son. He's going to go to the hospital again. So I'm like in there, right? And I'm so angry. And then I'm walking through the aisles, and then there's these like books popping out on me about God and faith and mom. And it's like, okay. I'm like, you trying to tell me something? So I pick one up, right? And I look, and what does it say? Anger. It talks about anger. And I was like, God is listening, because, oh my gosh. And I had chills. And then I come home, and I was talking to my daughter about it, my 9-year-old daughter, because she has a lot of faith like I do. We pray together and everything. And so she's like, Mom, let's look at this one, because I hadn't looked at the other book that I got. I got 3 books, right? The other one, exact same thing, anger. I was like, there you go. But yeah, God is good. God is faithful. And I know for a fact that He's going to get my son through this.
Amen.
This is just another little bump in the road of all the bumps, that my son is going to have to deal with. This is going to make him stronger. Like, he's already super strong. And I thank God for him, because honestly, like, he's what keeps me going, because I feel like I'm strong, but I'm not as strong as, I'm not that strong, but he makes me stronger because of the type of person he is,
Yeah.
He's just amazing. And then, like, one of my friends, she's like, well, who do you think you got it from? I'm like, I don't know. She's like, you. I'm like, oh my God, no. I'm like, because I forget,
Right.
I cry all the time, and I'm like, I can't get through this, and it's hard, and I just want to like scream and cry and punch the wall and everything. I want to take this away from my son. I don't want him to go through it, but
Right.
He's go through it, and he's gonna be amazing. He's gonna be somebody super amazing one day. He's gonna maybe be NFL. If not, he did mention doctor. Maybe he'll be a pediatric doctor. Maybe he'll deal with cancer, and he'll be the one to change everything.
And I believe that. I believe these kids are here with a purpose, whether they're still here fighting or whether they're not here anymore. They came here with a purpose, and they do have a purpose. So, Stacy, I just wanted to say thank you so much. Honestly, thank you for taking time. I know you were busy, and I know your little one was there jumping up and down. But I just wanted to say thank you for being able to share Kris's story. And it was a great honor and pleasure that he actually was able to pop in and say hi. I know he's going through a lot, and we just declare healing. We declare healing. And this family here, the Gold Corner family, and all these support groups, we got your back. We got your back. We're here for you. We're fighting with you. We're fighting, for you. And like you said, we have to have that faith. We have to know that God, what He started, He's going to finish. And we, that God is able, and God is still doing the same miracles He was doing 2,000, 3,000 years ago. The same miracles He was doing back then, He's still doing now. So we have to have a lot of faith. And even though our faith can be, shaken a little bit because of the situation we go through, and trust me, I went through that a lot, and I still go through that a lot. And what I tell people is, you know, they see me as a motivational speaker and a preacher. I'm broken, and I am completely broken, but it's not about me anymore. It's about preaching the word. It's about spreading awareness, and it's about making people realize what these kids go through and telling them how good God is and how we can still stand here like you and I and say God is good. No matter what has come our way, we can still say God is good. So Staci, I just want to say thank you very much. And to everybody that took the time to watch the story, I want to personally thank you. Again, the GoFundMe, the fundraiser, and all the information that Staci sends me, I'm going to go ahead and be uploading and be putting in the description of the video. I'm also going to be tagging her when I do upload any video or anything like that. So if you want to get a hold of her for any reason, if you want to ask her further questions, if you want to talk to her, if you want to help her, if God blesses you or God puts it in your heart to help her, I'm going to be tagging her, and I know she will be more than willing to talk to you any time of the day. So again, I just wanted to thank everybody once again for tuning in to this week's episode of the Gold Corner, which we are one family here, creating the family. And just remember, live each day to its fullest, because tomorrow's not promised. And just hold on a little while longer, because we're almost home. God bless you all. Have a good night.